Now let's look at pivot tables and charts. These are very important tools used in the workplace. Pivot tables and charts are used to tell a story for your data. They allow you to take your large data sets and break them down into digestible information very quickly. So I'm going to show you that right now. First, let's select all the data from column A to E. Once I've done that, go to the Insert tab and then click on Pivot Table. You'll now be given the option to either create the pivot table in a new worksheet or the existing worksheet. I'm going to do it in the new worksheet. Click OK. So what you will find is Excel has now created a pivot table fields list to your right, and that includes all the fields that were column headers in your larger data set. So there's the plugin text field, severity field, IP address field, and first discovered date. And you can now use these fields to create any tables you want. So it's very powerful because you can manipulate your data set very quickly using pivot tables. Now, it's not like you couldn't do the same thing in the larger data set. It will just take a lot more filtering and Excel formulas to achieve. Here, you can do it quickly. And let me give you an example. Let's say I wanted to just see the severities. I just click on the severity box. It shows me the severities by row. I can move the severities to column. It shows me the severities by column, but let me just move it back to rows. Now, if I wanted to get the total value of each severity in the data set, all I have to do is pull severity to values, and it gives me the total value of severities. Now, there might be instances where I want to see something other than the total value. I have option to find the average, the max, the min, the product. I also have the ability to change the name of the column. Here it's called count severity. I could change it to something else over there. Let me just click OK. Now, I can filter. I can pull items from this field list into the filter. Let's say I wanted to filter by first discovered date. I can pull first discovered date into there, and then all I have to do is come in here and just filter by whichever dates I want to see. So let's say I only want to see by these dates. I click OK, and now I'm looking at vulnerabilities that showed up just for these dates that I filtered by. And I can pull anything I want into the filtered section. I can also pull the IP addresses in there and do the same type of filtering, right? We come in here, filter by IP address, and then it filters the vulnerabilities by IP address, right? Another powerful thing about pivot tables is if I want to just get a deeper dive into one of the areas, so let's say I just want to look at all the lows and see what they're about. All I have to do is double click on the lows and it will open it up as its own section, and I can look down and every item here will just be one of the lows. I can do the same thing for the highs, the mediums, and the criticals, and even the total amount. Now let's say I added some more data to my sheet. Like I came back to sheet 1 and I made some changes to my data. Maybe a couple of my severities were recast as highs. So let me change this to a high, high. If I were to go back to my pivot table, I expect that the number of highs should rise from 588 to something else. So in order to refresh my pivot table, all I have to do is right-click on the pivot table, then click on the refresh button. And you see, the number of highs have now gone up to 592, and the number of lows and criticals have changed as well. Another way to do the refresh is to click on the pivot table tab right here, and just hit the refresh over here. Now, if you remember, when I created my pivot table, I only highlighted columns A to E. I did that because I wanted to show you how you can update your pivot table as you add more columns if you're doing more analysis. Let's say I initially had the first 5 columns, and then later I made some changes. I need to update my pivot table to accommodate these changes because right now I don't see those fields here. I don't see the fields, the additional field. So to do that, I come to the pivot table tab, click on Analyze, then open Change Source Data. Open Change Data Source, and then I just need to expand my selection from A1 to E2171 to A1 H271. I mean, I can come here and use my mouse and drag it all through, but it's a lot easier if I just come in here and change the E to an H, right? And now when I click OK, you can now see that included in the pivot table field is now the status, date, and environment. So now I can throw in a status. This shows me the items that are open, items that are closed, right? I could put the status in a column format instead. Makes it a little cleaner to look at. So now when I look at the criticals, I can see the criticals that are closed, criticals that are open, and the total. And now I can get even more granular. What if I wanted to look at only the critical items that are closed? I could just come over here, double click on this 125, and it's going to show me all the criticals that were closed. It's going to give me all the information I want to know about that. Just makes life easier. Finally, I'm going to look into charts. That's the next stage of this, right? Because part of what you'll be doing in the corporate place is you'll be using pivot tables to do data analysis, and then you'll be putting your analysis into charts to present to leadership, right? Or to your clients. And what I like to do is I like to have my pivot tables associated with a chart. So I can update both simultaneously, and then I can later throw my chart into a PowerPoint presentation. So the way to do a chart is all you have to do is select the pivot table, click on Insert, click on the chart you want. There's many different types of charts here, but let's say we wanted to do a bar chart. There you go. There's a bar chart. It has the criticals, the ones that are closed, the ones that are open in a nice format. You can filter just the way you were filtering with the pivot table, right? You can filter by severity as well. Any changes you make to the pivot table, it will make those same changes to the chart. And if you don't like this chart, you later want to change it, all you have to do is right-click on the chart, go to Change Chart Type. Then you can select a different kind of chart. Maybe you want this one. Maybe you want something like this. Maybe you want to use a pie chart. So there you go. We've come to the end of the cybersecurity project, and hopefully you have learned how to use macros to generate data. You've learned how to use Excel formulas to do some really powerful things. You've learned how to highlight your sheet, how to create pivot tables, and how to create charts for leadership. What I found throughout my career is that most of what I've shown you right now in this project is really all you're going to need in developing data, generating charts, and pivot tables. There are some advanced features that you can do with pivot tables, with charts, but most of the time you're not going to ever really have to do that. This is what you're going to have to do all the time. So rewatch the video, practice the parts that you may have missed, and I'll see you in the next video.